Live from the KC Property Guys and KC Pier Studio in beautiful Kansas City. Home to over 200 fountains and more barbecue restaurants per capita than anywhere in the nation. It's the Kansas City Real Estate Industry Leaders Show, a show about industry leaders from the local Kansas City metro market for Kansas City real estate related professionals and enthusiasts like you. And now, here's your hosts, Eric and Lucas Scheele.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the Kansas City Real Estate Industry Leaders Podcast. My name is Lucas Scheele, and I'm here with my co-host, Eric Scheele. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's just a little bit too cold out for me today.
Yeah, that's okay. We were outside. I guess you said it was 30 degrees earlier.
Yeah, it was 30.
Yeah, we were out in Bonner Springs taking a look at a house, trying to help the KCPG Realty Group move a house for a distressed owner.
Help her relocate.
Yeah, hopefully we can bring that one to terms. Where else you been this week?
Also been out to Overland Park doing a huge foundation job, one of our biggest yet.
Oh, yeah, on the pier side. So there's little braces, there's internal drains, there's white walling, there's sump pumps.
Yeah, there's beams as well. It was basically everything except a wall pushback on that job.
And we see the final product on?
We actually see the final product tomorrow. Hopefully we're going to get the film, but hopefully in about half a week, you guys will be able to see that whole video with Brian DeFleur, our Director of Operations for KC Pier. It's pretty
nice.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so what are we talking about today?
Well, I think we're going to dive in. You know, what is this? This is our maybe third or fourth
Episode
podcast.
3.
Episode 3.
Yes, sir.
Okay, officially. We actually have our first couple subscribers on YouTube. That's a big celebration. Woo, there we go. We're off.
Yes, sir.
First 1 to 1, and now the next one's 1 million. We were talking about, don't think it'll happen, but anyway, we do this for a labor of love. It's not necessarily for subscribers, but it's always interesting to hear some comments from people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've already had some participation, and that's interesting because we love what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we hope other people kind of love the real estate world as well. I mean, this is the Kansas City Real Estate Industry Leaders. We're going to have, and we're using this exchange between you and I. This is kind of important. I want to talk about this because it is early. We're using this exchange between you and I to kind of get our format down, right, of podcasting and also getting our flow and getting our syndication set up, which we're actually in production right now. We don't really have a podcast that's syndicated as of yet, but of course, once you hear this as a listener, we will have been syndicated. But we're 3 or 4 episodes into this, and we're still waiting for our syndication to actually come through production. My point is we're kind of working out our bugs, and we're talking about what we do, which we're going to continue to do in different chapters in terms of the real estate world. But I really look forward to bringing in real estate industry leaders from the Kansas City area, which we're starting, I think, within the next couple weeks, correct?
Yes, we are actually, which is going to be really cool. We're going to bring actually some of our realtors in from the KCPG Realty side, as well as a whole bunch of other foundation people. We're going to bring in Brian DeFleur, as well as Eric Lancaster, a few others. So it should be really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll be talking to brokers and some property managers and just all makes, walks of life related to real estate are coming into our studio here in Kansas City, Kansas, and we're going to talk shop with them.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So it's great talking between you and I, but it's going to be more fun to spice it up a little bit and get some new blood in here, and let's talk about what they do versus what we do, right?
Yeah, for sure. But for this episode, I believe we are going to be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of selling a home to a cash investor.
Yep.
So when it comes to buying homes or just for you, people reaching out to you as a cash investor, would you say that it is trending right now? Like, is it trending to go reach out to a cash investor to get rid of your home?
Yeah, we're 5 years into this, and if I compare, 5 years isn't a real long time, but it's long enough to definitely see trends and we understand our business, and we kind of got our flow, and we're evolving with some of the market changes and things that we see within the industry itself. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at where we started 5 years ago and the type of house that we saw and still see today, it was mainly spinning off of one of the pioneers in the real estate cash investor market, which is we buy ugly houses.
Yeah, the first one.
And so that being said, 5 years ago, when you would hear from a person, most likely they were probably selling in their mind an ugly house, or it was a house that was in a lot of disrepair and needed a lot of attention. And so if you fast forward to today, we still see those homes. We still get a lot of calls from people in distressed situations or have houses that just have a lot of repair and deferred maintenance that need a lot of attention, a lot of downsizers, a lot of retirees. We get phone calls from people that have moved out of state and now had a renter in there and don't want to do the property management thing.
Yeah.
From 500 miles away. You get those calls with those distressed properties, but we also see some pretty nice properties. So absolutely it's trending. I mean, I've had a call this personally this summer on a $2.2 million house out in South Overland Park, and we worked with $1 million property in a estate out in Harrisonville, and we're on the KCPG Realty Group have a $600,000 property right now, a $500,000 property, two $400,000 properties, and so things definitely are becoming, I guess, more acceptable as a cash selling, as an exit strategy for a home, as a seller to at least consider a real estate cash investor.
For sure.
Over the traditional real estate MLS, sell it through a realtor, or work through the showings and the closings and the negotiation and the inspections and everything else that kind of goes with that, right? So, I think it's trending. I think it's going to continue to trend because people like immediacy. They want their answer and they want it now. I mean, this is today's world is
fast paced,
very fast paced,
yes.
and they would like some resolutions. And that's the thing about selling to a real estate cash investor is you can literally sell a house in a matter of minutes, and within a few days or a few weeks, you can have that house sold, moved, and be done with it. And you can't necessarily see that through the traditional MLS. And so, all those factors, I think, are definitely contributing to trending and becoming more acceptable to the general public as selling to a cash investor, real estate investor, as an option.
Yeah, for sure. Always the real estate market is just growing and growing nowadays. But when it comes to the cash investor, what are some advantages of that? I know that you guys at Kansas City Property Guys, we offer creative real estate options.
Right.
What are some advantages to selling to a cash investor?
Yeah, so we've kind of touched upon it a little bit. It's done. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Let's set the easy button out there.
Yeah.
Right? That was easy. And it can be the easy button of real estate. And sometimes I tell people that on the phone. I said, don't call me over unless you're serious about selling, because you're going to have an opportunity literally to sell a house in 10 minutes and come to an agreement and plan for a closing as soon as a couple weeks away, or if you want to close it 2 months from now. It doesn't matter to me when you want to close it, but if you really want to fast pace a close, you can. And so I think that's probably the biggest advantage is that it offers is it's time. You save a ton of time by going through a real estate cash investor. You don't have to worry about all the deferred maintenance. You don't have to pick up the house. I mean, a lot of times you can just pack up and leave. I mean, there's been more than a few houses in the past where we've worked with the owner and ultimately just said, most of these are tend to be cases where the owner is actually an heir to an estate, so they've adopted the house of their parents or grandparents, and the house is full of 30, 40 years worth of inherited stuff that they don't have any room for. They've already picked through their valuables. And so they can just simply walk away from that house. I mean, you can't do that in the traditional real estate world.
No, not at all.
No, you're going to have to clean that out. You're going to have to find places for it. You're going to have to bring in the haul off junk guys, or you're going to have to do something with it, get a storage unit, something. And so I think the biggest advantage to working with a cash investor is that there is that time savings and just what some people perceive as the headache of it all, right? No inspections. Inspections are done the day that you come to an agreement. There's no reinspection. There's no closing. that actually is pushed out 30 to 45 days because of underwriting and conventional close models. If you're working with truly a cash investor that is going to come with cash on the day that you close, it becomes a very easy and simple solution, which is highly attractive to some sellers and becoming a more and more popular option for people.
Yeah, it's always great to have options, multiple options, especially when it comes to the real estate side of things. But those are just some advantages. What would be some potential pitfalls of selling to a cash home investor?
So you can flip that, right? You can say, well, the time is good, but if you don't necessarily if you're not necessarily worried about selling very quickly, then you can probably do a lot better financially by not going through a cash investor. The traditional real estate option by selling to an owner-occupant is always going to bring more cash to the table in most all scenarios for a home seller. But the convenience side is there for the cash option, but it does come at a cost. Right, and so there's always that cash versus time constraint and consideration that homeowners have to make. Okay, if you are going to sell it fast and easy, it is going to come at a cost, because now you're not paying the realtor the 6% fees. Now the cash investor ultimately is going to have to pay that realtor when he ultimately sells it. You're not going to fix it up, like we said before. You don't even have to take the stuff out for a lot of these guys, and so. The easy button is great, but it does come at an equity, compromise. And so probably one of the biggest pitfalls you have as a seller is to work through that time versus cash constraint. And so sometimes, at least for us on our side at KC Property Guys, is sometimes you throw out that cash number because we're the one rehabbing the property, like I said before, and we're the ones paying the realtor. So there is that number, and sometimes that comes with sticker shock. You give them the cash number, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't expect that." And so we try to help them walk through the numbers and make them see kind of why the number is the number, and we just happen to have a team of realtors on our side, so we can actually talk to them about a real estate play and compare the options. And we have, if you go to our website, it always says Creative Real Estate Solutionist, and that's come from, experience of work with so many people in different life scenarios that there's probably a hybrid solutions also between the cash option and the realtor option that can be considered a creative solution that'll bring more cash to the table than just the cash option, maybe less than the realtor option, or maybe we actually, sometimes we actually help homeowners fix up their house, pre-list packages, and bring more equity, spend $1 to make two scenarios, and bring more equity to the table for them through creative real estate. And so those types of options, which are out of the box options, always exist as well to kind of avoid or compromise some of those pitfalls, which typically is the cash number. The other piece to that, I guess, is when you're dealing with cash investment, cash buyer or a cash investor for real estate, that's a broad term. We probably should talk about that as a home seller, because sometimes this is kind of seller beware. The cash investment world can be wrapped up in a lot of different ways, and most people think it's a cash buy, and that's the traditional way, and that's the way we do it as well. But there are, there's those programs out where you can sell houses with other people's cash, kind of a wholesaling play or an assignment play, and there's different models out there that some investors use that aren't nearly as reliable as a true cash investor who's going to come to the table, close with cash. You can count on it. It's done. It's truly is that easy button. And so, as a seller, you got to kind of beware of some of those and educate yourself and read fine print and take a look at contracts. Use Google as your rep source,
little map.
Oh, absolutely. And read reviews and make sure people are reputable. Are they on the BBB? And those types of things also, just to make sure, and that's true with any industry or any service related industry. If you got an HVAC guy in or an electrician, you're going to want to check his reviews all the same and make sure he's all validated. But it's the same thing in the cash investment world too. Do your homework. Make sure you know who you're dealing with to avoid, those pitfalls or surprises, because I think we've talked about this before. There are definitely cases in the past where, I've worked with a home and I've given my solutions, but they end up going in a different direction. And it's one of those alternative, programs where the fine print maybe not was exposed, or maybe they just attempted to go through an alternative other than a traditional cash investment, and then came to closing and the phone rings and there was a back out. And so the next day I get a phone call saying, "Hey, Eric, can you come back out? Let's take a look and re-speak about what we spoke about, 3-4 weeks ago." I mean, that job we're doing in Pleasant Hill, same thing.
Yeah.
Literally.
Really?
We were under contract initially as a cash buy, a very nice home on 3 acres out in Pleasant Hill. Deal. The next day I got a call and she said, "I got this other traditional buyer that it represents a lot more money." I said, "Okay, that's fine. No problem. Take it, run with it." And so she kind of left with my blessing, and because we were under contract at the time, so we canceled that and let her chase that. But unfortunately, 45 days later, I got the phone call.
Yeah.
And she had already moved to the Ozarks, right? And
wow.
24 hours before the close date, things just fell through. And so we went back to our original contract, finally got closed on it. Now we're actually out there working on it now.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Right? So those things are real. And if it's happened once, it's happened a dozen times for us in the past. And
it will happen again.
And it'll happen again. So, seller beware. Seller, just make sure you're educated and really do your homework.
Do your homework.
Yes.
A lot of research.
And read the fine print in those contracts, and you should be able to make a good choice, because there's definitely some really reputable cash buyers out there.
That's some great advice.
Well, that's what we're here for,
yes,
right? Pros and cons.
Yes,
right?
Yep.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. The podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your likes, shares, and support. Now, back to the show.
So, like you were saying earlier, you do think that the market is trending right now and that it is just going to go up, keep building and building. So what would you say the local market in Kansas City right now is?
So what's the status?
Or
now,
what's it trending as right now? How is it?
Well, we're in December, right? So traditional real estate and even the investment real estate slows down, right? And we work in some channels on KC Property Guys that don't slow down, and so we stay busy. But traditional real estate and the cash buy phone calls have definitely slowed down. We normally get 5 to maybe 10 on a real busy week phone calls for a cash buy, and now we're getting anywhere from 2, maybe 4 calls. So it is trending down, but it is December.
Yeah, it's slow. It's around the holidays. No one wants to get out on the holidays.
You're still munching on turkey, right? And you're still now you got Aunt Edna and Uncle Bob coming in town.
Yeah.
And no one's going to sell a house, during that time, right? So
it's tough.
The people that are selling a house, they have to sell a house.
Yeah.
And then I was just working with a couple just last night out in Lee Summit, and it's an estate home. Well, the parents are still living. They moved in with the son. Son redid his whole basement for his parents. It's a fantastic story. And the father, who was there, he was present, was selling his house, and he was really concerned about selling it prior to his next mortgage payment. He's never been late in 18 years. He didn't want to be late, but he also is on Social Security now. His wife is under some health conditions, and he's one that really wanted to make sure
everything would be in check
and closed by the end of December. And so we're looking at fast tracking that particular one. But that's an example of seasonal changes in the market. And this is definitely a slower time. The people that have to sell and the people that are looking to buy, by the way, are serious about buying too. There's not a lot of tire kickers that are getting out when it's 30 degrees in the morning. Those people are really looking to buy. They need to buy. They're moving in town or something to that effect. So it's slower, but it's still trend. It's still it's still an okay time. It's just a slower time. If you're a real estate investor looking to get into the field, might be a little tougher to get into the field right now. The springtime.
Not much skin in the game right now.
Well, and everybody else is also kind of looking for houses. If you're not doing a large volume, you get a lot of mid-sized investors that are looking for houses, and so it's a really aggressive market too, which can be a really good time to sell. From a seller's perspective, keep that in mind. Supply and demand, right?
Yeah,
you can
right.
use that as your leverage, and just make sure you do your homework with who you're working with before you. Some numbers, and I tell this to homeowners too. Some numbers are too good to be true, and they really are. Here's my number. Here's the other reputable guy's number. Here's the C company who's also a reputable number, and then all of a sudden you get this number that's just like, whoa, wait, that's way out of everybody else's range. So you get the experience numbers that are all in the same area.
That can explain it through of why it is that number.
Yeah, and then you have this other one that's just a little too good to be true. And
fishy.
Better be careful with those because a lot of times they are. Do your homework. Some of those guys make mistakes too, and let them make the mistakes. Like we talk about, you lose or gain your business on the day that you buy a property. So if someone makes a mistake, you can let them make a mistake, but at the same time, most of the time, it's not a good thing. There's something there that you really need to look into a little bit further if you're going to consider that out of the realm type of normal offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to the homeowners selling their house, like you were talking about, what is one way that they could kind of assess the own value of their house, or try to figure out what kind of market they're in, how much it is, so they can kind of tell when somebody's going to be, not upfront about it. And
sure, absolutely. Talk to a realtor. That's an easy way. A realtor will always assess it, but they're also going to give you the hard sell to sell that house too. And sometimes the realtors, this is, I say this, and I work with a realtor group. At least we have a real estate group as part of working with the KC Property Guys properties. But we do see at times that realtors will tell homeowners what they want to hear, maybe not what they necessarily need to hear in terms of valuation. Well, you got a $150,000 house when it's compared to comparable data, but the realtor may go out there and say, I can sell it for $175 because they're trying to get the business. Yeah, they're competing with 10,000 other realtors, in the Kansas City market, and some of that gamesmanship kind of goes on in the real estate world as well. So be careful. Find a realtor that you can trust, I guess, and that will create comps that you can trust, comparable other homes that have sold in your neighborhood that you can trust. And if you want to do self-service, then Realtor.com, Trulia.com, Zillow.com, and you can do those. There is a pitfall against using some of those sources because a lot of them will just geolocate a half-mile circle around your house. And if 10 homes sold in the last 6 months, you add up those 10 homes' value, you divide by 10, and it spits out an average without necessarily consideration of condition or square footage. Some of those tweak and fine-tune square footages, but you can really see some misappropriated values on some of those wholesale websites and end-user real estate websites too. So do your homework, compare it. When you're going to hear the number from the cash real estate investor, it will be different because keep in mind, they're paying the realtors, you're not, and they got to fix this house up, to ultimately sell it in the market, and you don't. You
get the
don't
full
have
potential
to.
out of the house.
Absolutely, and that's the investment side of that business. And the reason you've called that cash investor most likely in the first place is because you don't want to do that stuff.
Yeah.
So there has to be a cost of not wanting to do that stuff. So just be realistic about it, and have an open mind, and call a couple reputable real estate investors and just listen to what they have to say and do your homework on who they are. Compare it to what you're seeing on Zillow and Trulia, and maybe even comps run by a realtor, and come up with your options. I mean, that's the whole thing about selling a house, which is really popular, especially coming into springtime, which will be here before you know it. Is you do have options. Yeah. As a seller, and so it's something that if you really want to, you take your time and take a look at the options and find what fits best for your life scenario at that time.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of your advice you've given us today. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and learned a little bit of something here on episode 3. But that's been our advantages and disadvantages of selling to a home cash investor. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. So you guys take care.
All right.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Kansas City Real Estate Industry Leaders Show. Please support all things local to Kansas City. And hey, be sure to subscribe and share our podcast on Facebook and LinkedIn. This has been a KC Property Guys production. KCPropertyGuys.com.